Namaskar and welcome to NatStrat Conversations. My name is Pankaj Saran and I welcome you once again to another episode of our series in which we bring you various issues of importance to India in the field of geopolitics, national security, technology, and economy. The subject of today's podcast is how is Pakistan coping? This is a question which everyone is asking, and it is a question to which there are few answers. But today we have with us one of the foremost experts in India on Pakistan and Afghanistan, Mr. Tilak Devasher, and I would like to welcome Tilak to the show, to the NatStrat Conversations. Let me introduce Tilak briefly. He is the author of 4 widely acclaimed books on Pakistan. His first book, Pakistan Courting the Abyss, was written in 2016. And I want to ask him, was it a prophetic book? Because in 2016, Pakistan had not yet entered the period of its crisis, which I trace back to the start of the government of Prime Minister Imran Khan in 2018. And in these last 5-6 years, we have seen the unraveling and the multiple crises which Pakistan has been facing. He has also written books on Baluchistan and he is an editor of many other books. He has served in the Cabinet Secretariat as a Special Secretary and currently is a member of the National Security Advisory Board. So welcome Tilak to the show and we look forward to getting your views and insights into what is a very complicated and a complex country and a region. So to begin with, I believe you told me once that your books were more popular in Pakistan than they were in India. Is that correct?
Well, first of all, Pankaj, thank you so much for having invited me to have a conversation on an area that I'm very fond of and written a lot about. I'm not sure whether the books are more popular than in India, but certainly people have read my books in Pakistan with a great deal of interest. And some of the books have also been reviewed. The first 3 books, in fact, were reviewed in like Dawn, in Daily Times, and have been very well appreciated. The last book on the Pashtuns, because of the trade stoppage between the 2 countries, has not made its way officially into Pakistan, but there are a lot of other people who have got it across through various means. So yes, they've been very well received. And one of the reasons for that is because people have felt that I have written objectively. That even though they're surprised that an Indian writing on Pakistan could do so objectively, because I have quoted Pakistani sources. Right. And I've not given any value judgment of my own. Right. Right. So basically telling them that, what's going wrong with their country. Yeah.
No, it's interesting that, and it's, I think, critical that scholarship on Pakistan and associatedly with Afghanistan, coming from India, must carry a special weightage compared to Western scholarship on Pakistan and Afghanistan, because we ought to be understanding them much better than anyone else.
That's very true. That's very true. And also, I have gone into studying what is the problems within Pakistan.
Yeah.
Rather than just focusing on the normal topics that people focus on, Indo-Pak relations or terrorism and things. I've done that too. But I've really put a lot of effort into understanding where Pakistan is going wrong. Why is it such a troublesome state?
Yeah, and what has actually happened is that in the last few years, our attention has been so focused on faraway crises like Ukraine or not so far recently in Israel and Hamas, etc., that somehow the Indian mind seems to have actually not sufficiently understood and realized the gravity of the situation inside Pakistan and in its relationship with Afghanistan. So I would like to begin today by talking to you about the situation inside Pakistan and the multiple crises that it has faced. Now, the title of your book in 2016, in my opinion, was very prophetic because you said courting the abyss. Actually, I think the abyss came and became much more deep in the last 4 or 5 years. And in some ways, loosely speaking, the decline and the kind of slippery slope down in terms of internal stability in Pakistan seems to have coincided with the second five-year term of Prime Minister Modi, which is basically 2019 till 2024. And, there have been multiple crises. We can kind of untangle them bit by bit. But initial remarks on the gravity, the complexity, and how you would rate the current situation in Pakistan compared to its past history.
So, one famous, I thought was a very smart question that I had posed in that book. And after summarizing all the issues in Pakistan, I'd asked, is Pakistan then ungovernable, or are its leaders incapable of governing Pakistan? But that is really the crux. Yeah. And I think the Pakistani leadership, successive leadership, civilian or military, has failed to govern Pakistan. First of all, they don't have an understanding of what is going on. It seems, because if you did have an understanding, you would do something about it. They lack a vision on what is to be done. And they just seem to be drifting. I mean, I wrote this in 2016 when the crisis was not so imminent, but I could see the way it was going. Deep structural issues which take a long time to deteriorate, like water, for example, education, economy, population. You have to rectify these issues, because if you don't, then the rectification process becomes much longer. And I found in 2016, despite Pakistani think tanks and researchers pointing out, bit by bit what is happening, the politicians were just not paying attention, and neither was the army. So I said, if in 10 years' time, Pakistan has not reversed course, they are heading towards the abyss. And as you rightly mentioned, the crisis is now accumulated, and you can see every day things are going wrong.
Because if you look at the kind of crises that they are facing, these are not day-to-day kind of situations. These are epochal. I mean, for example, the collapse of the economy. Whether you look at key statistics. I mean, I'm not going to get into the details of macroeconomics, but even things like the value of the rupee, the balance of payments crisis, the fact that they were on the verge of default, the soaring rate of inflation, which is 30% official but much more unofficially, and so on and so forth, the low tax base, etc. These are really big challenges. And then, of course, if you keep the economy outside and then focus on the politics and the whole relationship among the politicians, the army's attitude towards Imran Khan and the rest of the politicians, the return of Nawaz Sharif, the impending elections on the 8th of February. So there are these multiple crises which are taking place, and the greatest sufferer in all of this, I think, is the average Pakistani, because they seem to be in a position where they do not have anyone to look up to in terms of who can actually take grip of the situation.
Bail them out, really. Yeah. And you rightly mentioned economy is one of a huge fault line and a problem. But I'm really worried about, I wrote about water extensively. Now, you see, water is something, there's no life without water. And the way Pakistan has dealt with its water, abundant water resources, they got a very good deal in the Indus Water Treaty. But they have not managed it properly. So as a result, Pakistani think tanks are saying that Pakistan is going to become absolute water scarce. That is less than 500 cubic meters per capita per annum, which is like drought-like conditions, in 5 years from now. Now, neither China nor nuclear weapons or anything can help with water. You take education. 50% of the children who should be in primary schools don't go to school. So you're building generations of people who have not been to school. And in today's technological and globalized world, how are they going to be running the economy? What kind of jobs are they going to be able to do?
So is it a lack of awareness on the part of the ruling elites about these problems, or the lack of financial resources, or is it that they have been preoccupied with the wrong priorities?
Yeah, I think it's the last one, because if I can study this and come to know, surely Pakistani politicians, but they're just not interested. They're just not interested. They think they can push the can down the road and somebody else will come and fix the problem for them. Yeah. They will never accept their own responsibility.
But, people say that since the military occupies a central position in terms of the governance, regardless of all the other formal structures, do you think there is a lack of sufficient sensitivity within the army on these issues, on the softer, let us say, social sector issues?
I think, the armies, like armies everywhere, is cocooned from the other society. They have their own schools. They have their own water. So, and in Pakistan, the army is probably the biggest business leader, So they are cocooned from what is happening in the rest of the society.
But the attacks against the core commander in Lahore in May this year, following the Imran Khan arrests and so on, was that a wake-up call for them to say that, look, maybe we are reaching that point in the relationship between the army and the civilians and the political parties where you can no longer be comfortable behind closed walls and closed fences and insulate yourself from the day-to-day troubles of the common man?
See, from what I've read, I don't think so. I think the lesson they have learned, or the conclusion they have come, that this was an attempt by Imran Khan and his supporters to challenge the supremacy of the army. They don't see it that there is a social and economic cause behind it which we need to rectify. They feel that it was just a cult, because he's a cult figure. His supporters came out to damage the army. So, tighten the screws on the PTI and on Imran Khan to make sure that this is not repeated. But not going for the deeper cause.
Right. So you have a situation where actually the army, apart from fighting wars and defending territory, must also show equal competency in social sectors and in also attracting FDI and negotiating with the IMF. So you cannot pick and choose the kind of sectors and areas you will intervene in. And it seems to me that if increasingly people are abdicating the job of governance to the army, then it seems perhaps that the message going to the Pakistani army by Pakistanis themselves and the politicians and others is, look, if you want to govern us, then you better also take care of everything else, not just fighting India or anything else.
But here the army picks and chooses. You see, when they brought in Imran Khan and the hybrid system, they told him, you look after the economy and governance, leave security, defense, foreign policy to us. That's fine as a hybrid system, provided the man could govern. He didn't have any ideas. He was incapable of governing. He was popular. And they thought that popularity will see Pakistan through.
Yeah. So now, I mean, since we are shifting to the political problem, but I take your point about the utter gravity of this whole problem of water, infrastructure, population, 240 million today, and growing at?
And growing at 2.5% or something like that.
Yeah. So it is actually growing at an unsustainable pace.
See, just one figure. There are 3 million people entering the labor market every year after year for the next 40 years. Pakistan's economy at the moment is not capable of providing more than 600 to 750,000 jobs per year. So what happens to the 2.25 million people who are entering the labor force every year? What happens to them? Where do they go?
And they're all young.
They're all between. It's the youngest, growing population in this in the neighborhood. So these are between 18 to 35. They don't have jobs. Half of them are illiterate because they haven't been to primary school. What are they going to be? They saw the jihadi organizations and tanzeems are magnets.
So in some senses, the social contract is collapsing.
In a very big way.
Because the relationship between the common man and the state institutions.
The only thing that I think which keeps Pakistan still going are the informal networks.
Yes.
The biradari in the rural areas where, you have this zakat and people giving out charity and looking after everybody else. So that is what the informal sector, the informal economy is what is keeping Pakistan together. But if you look at the real figures, it's a disaster. But the informal sector is bailing it out.
Now, that's an important point because many people have said that you will not see the kind of grinding poverty in Pakistan that you might see in parts of India. Is that true?
It used to be true. It is no longer true. You would recall that a couple of months ago, there were riots for atta. People died in stampedes, to grab atta because there was no food going around. Now, the way the electricity prices have gone up, there's a case people have written in the Dawn that a family of 4 could not afford to pay the electricity bills, so they lived without electricity for 2 months till the neighbors got together and paid the electricity bill. But how long can you do this on an ad hoc basis? People have had to pull out their children from school, eat less, or eat fewer meals, from a car switch to a motorcycle to a cycle. So this deterioration is happening.
Yeah. So actually, you're decelerating and going back in time in terms of standard of living. So the sense of the future for a common man is hardly optimistic. And if there is no hope for a better future, that leads to even worse problems and even greater frustration, which can vent itself in very, very different ways.
And especially that is one part of it. The second part of it, when you see the prosperity in cities like Lahore, Islamabad, Rawalpindi, Karachi, people are very rich. You know, the huge houses, servants, massive cars, gas guzzlers. To them, it makes no difference because, you know, they've made their money through illegal means or whatever. But for the rest of the population, you know, this is um, a nightmare. So a lot of surveys have been done, you know, Gallup or have done survey. The number of people who are dejected and they don't see a future in Pakistan over the years has been increasing. And that's why you find people running away from Pakistan. This tragedy off the coast of Greece, 300 people. So, you know, people just wanted to get out of Pakistan whichever way they can, legally, illegally.
But of course, we are not going to see any uprising or a revolution in Pakistan like we see in Europe or in Russia or in Soviet Union of people coming out on the streets. I mean, there's a great degree of resilience given the Indian subcontinental stock, where you can actually withstand huge amounts of deprivation. But nevertheless, what is actually probably manifesting also is the deep fissures arising on the identity front between provinces. And, you know, say between, for example, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa or Baluchistan or Sindh. So there is that bit of an unraveling socially and politically of provinces fending for themselves, politically going in different directions. And this identity of a pan-Islamic Pakistan is taking a beating.
Actually, the ethnic fault lines in Pakistan are very deep.
And they will probably deepen because of these problems.
Yes, because right from the beginning, it is Punjabi army, Punjabi bureaucracy, which has actually ruled other three provinces as a colony, except for few Pashtuns who were co-opted in the army. So you have alienation in Sindh. Baluchistan has been in revolt since 48, since the time it was forcibly acceded to Pakistan. And the Pashtuns are now saying, we don't want to be treated as cannon fodder any longer. You know, we're not interested in your foreign policy goals. You give us the same rights which the Punjabi has as per the Pakistan constitution. So the ethnic fault lines are, you know, very deep and growing. Sindh, for example, says that the upper riparian Punjab is stealing our water because now the Indus, which is the lifeline of Sindh, does not even reach the sea during the non-monsoon months. So districts like Thatta and Badin have become saline because of seawater intrusion. People have had to migrate from there because no cultivation is possible. The soil has become saline. NWFP says the same thing about its water.
And you know, the floods last year, which were actually apocalyptic in a sense, and they followed those very severe summer months. So extreme events, weather events, are also now becoming more regular in Pakistan, and therefore the threat from climate change is adding and compounding to the man-made miseries of that.
Yeah. See, last year what happened, there was unprecedented rainfall. Yeah. You know, they tried to initially say, okay, India has released water in the, you know, in the rivers, but they said, no, it's unprecedented, about 300% more rain than normal in Sindh and Baluchistan. Extreme weather event. Yeah. And, but that was extreme. But in the normal course, what Pakistan has not been able to do, for example, as I mentioned, water, you know, look after its water resources. Again, just one example. Because they've not built enough storage dams, so about 30 million acre feet of water, which is more than the flow of the entire Chenab River, is flowing into the sea during the monsoon months. And rest of the year, Indus doesn't reach the sea. So to one extent, you can say the entire Chenab River is flowing into the sea without being used. And the losses of that are enormous.
No, but then, you know, the ability to build the infrastructure is not easy. I mean, it requires a huge amount of money, but also many, many other kinds of resources.
But for 70 years, you see, they built just two dams, Tarbela and Mangla. India has built so many. But they didn't do that. You see, they didn't factor in because they had.
Would you say that all this is a consequence of the fact that the wrong people have been governing Pakistan? Because if you have a civilian leadership, or if you have people who are more close to the grassroots, or who have an open mind, or who are more familiar with the art of and the whole nature and the business of governing a country, maybe these problems may not have become so serious as they have today.
Also, you see, I think a couple of factors. All the leaders after Jinnah didn't survive very much long, after Pakistan was created. But all the others have looked after their self-interest, their own interest. How do I get back into power? Rather than building the infrastructure or looking at the long-term development of Pakistan. So that has been a major problem.
And I also meant the domination of the army.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually either army or proto-army regimes.
And because they got money cheaply and easily. You see, because of the geographical location, thrice in the past, the US has bailed them out. Under Ayub Khan, then when Zia was there, and then when Musharraf was there. So war on terror, the Soviet invasion, Soviet jihad, and when the US wanted bases to monitor the Soviet Union. So they got easy money. They said, we don't need to work. Once you give them doles like this, without any payback, without any accountability, this is fine. We're too important to fail. The world owes us a responsibility.
Correct. So there's kind of a rentier economy and a rentier mentality that seem to have managed to take them through till this pass. But I think really, I mean, of course, history will be a better judge of where we are today in terms of their condition. But it does seem to me that you seem to have reached almost a situation where you have never found yourself in terms of the whole thing. And of course, things can always get worse. But I don't think it has got worse than this in the past. And a lot of commentaries have come out saying that Pakistan has never been in a worse crisis than it is today. The question is whether we in India are cognizant of this, we understand the scale and the ramifications in an objective fashion. I mean, leave aside the polemics and our rivalries with Pakistan, but just as students of the study of other societies and as educated people and observers, to actually dissect what's happening and to make an assessment objectively of what is the condition of this country and this economy, and then the question arises, what are the solutions? And even more importantly, are there any solutions? I mean, how do you resolve some of these fundamental issues which may take a generation
or longer
to go away? And, so superimposed with all this, of course, is the whole political churning which we have seen since last year. I mean, the slow death of, metaphorically speaking, political demise of Imran Khan, the internecine kind of rivalries with the army and the establishment leading to his ouster, then the entry of Shehbaz, and today the return of Nawaz Sharif and the election. So do you think all this might help in resolving some of these issues? If you have an election, if you have a government back in position which may be more responsible?
So let me answer your question in three parts. I'll just read out what one very, a good commentator, very mature, very senior and respected, he wrote an article. He says that he has talked to people in authority and asked them a question. Is the situation as bad as people think it is? Yeah. And he says almost invariably the answer is, it is even worse. So, the first part of the question which you asked about, has it been this bad before? Second, about India. See, people in India recognize that Pakistan is going through a tough time. But there is also undeniably a sense of triumphalism. Yeah, serve these guys right. I would suggest caution that we need to understand what's going wrong with Pakistan much more in an objective fashion. Because you can't be complacent that Pakistan has survived crises in the past. It will survive this one also. इसमें क्या नई बात क्या है? We have to go beyond muscle memory. We have to understand the various elements of the crisis in Pakistan, how they can impact us, what we need to do, and what are the signs that we need to be look out. So I think that kind of, there is more complacency in India. We need to be far more proactive in understanding what's going wrong with Pakistan.
I think not only complacency, I would say there is even probably lack of enough understanding and knowledge about Pakistan. Unlike what you have written, I don't think there is much learned understanding of the internal intricacies of Pakistan. There is a simplistic view of Pakistan.
There are centers, but they're not sort of connected. A few little bit of work is happening here and there. They don't come out into the mainstream as such. But I think a lot more needs to be done, and to look seriously at what's going wrong with Pakistan. That's what's the second part of the question. The third part of what's in the last 1 year, you see, I think that the real pivot of what's going wrong in Pakistan today was the political engineering of the army to bring an Imran Khan-led hybrid government. They didn't understand him. Captain hai, popular guy, and they wanted to get rid of Nawaz Sharif and things. Very interesting. 2 days ago, or a couple of days ago, on a TV program in Pakistan, Hamid Mir was the journalist, was saying, he said, let me reveal a fact to you, that the army chief and then ISI chief and other people called Shehbaz Sharif. And they said, we will make you the prime minister and you take over. We don't want Nawaz Sharif, you become the prime minister. He said, I will not betray my brother. I will not, and if you think that I will take decisions which Nawaz Sharif has not endorsed, you're mistaken. I'm telling you now, I won't do it. Then he said they were forced to go to Imran Khan. Now, how far is true, I don't know. But that was, you see, once you brought a man like Imran Khan into power, they didn't realize this man was a megalomaniac. With the hubris, he thinks he's God's gift to Pakistan. Then they found, oh God, this is a monster. And so then they got rid of him by the simple tactic of not interfering, cutting him adrift politically. Without their political management, his majority became into a minority. The opposition saw what was happening, a bill of no confidence, and he was out. But you see, again, Imran Khan is a different kettle of fish. He refused to accept the fact that God's gift to Pakistan could be removed in a democratic fashion. Really a conspiracy. And he was able to galvanize people in all the provinces, especially in Punjab, that this is a conspiracy and I will resign, I will carry out long marches and all that. So he kept himself in the public limelight since April 22. And then it became so much that the army said, what do we do with him? So when they arrested him on 9th of May, then you know what happened. And there was an implosion and things. So that has been the pivot of what's gone wrong with Pakistan in the last 1 year. Of course, there are structural issues we've talked about, but the last 1 year, this is what has happened.
And then I want to switch a little bit on the Afghanistan dimension of the whole thing. I mean, we were around, when 15th August 2021.
Yeah.
And from then till now, more than 2 years, seems a lifetime in terms of the transformation and how tables have turned. And today, its primary fundamental cross-border crisis is not the India-Pakistan border, but the Pakistan-Afghanistan border. And tell us a little more about your impressions of how this has panned out, culminating in the decision to expel the Afghan refugees from Pakistan, and the interplay between the TTP and the Pakistani establishment and the Afghan Taliban. I mean, this whole thing has just, in some sense, burst in the faces of what the Pakistanis might have imagined and had probably banked upon.
So, you mentioned August 21. When the Taliban took over Kabul, there was euphoria in Pakistan that the 20-year covert policy of supporting the Taliban was successful. They had finally who they wanted in Kabul. Imran Khan said the Taliban have broken the shackles of slavery, whatever that meant. And the reason for this was threefold. Reason for the euphoria. One, they said now India is going to be out. So our nightmare which we had for two-front thing, Taliban will expel, and India has already left. Taliban will recognize the Durand line as the international border. And third, the Taliban will defang the TTP, throw them out of there, and we'll take care of it so we have the security. Within a year, all those things unraveled. India was back in Kabul at the invitation of the Taliban.
Absolutely.
Taliban refused to recognize the Durand line. On the other hand, they even removed parts of the fences, saying we don't accept this border, and this divides brothers. And they refused to defang the TTP. At best, they said we can facilitate talks between you and the TTP. We will not take action against them. So their policy is in tatters. And over the last 1 year, the attacks of the TTP have gone from strength to strength. In fact, I was looking at some figures of Pakistani think tanks. In the first 9 months of the year, there have been over 380 casualties, fatalities of Pak Army, police and rangers. That is roughly 40 deaths killed by the TTP per month for 9 months. Can you imagine the scale of the attacks? And then just yesterday, that huge attack in DI Khan, probably the fourth or the fifth attack in DI Khan, but 25 Pakistani army people were killed. So the entire policies, and the surprising thing is, nobody knows the Afghans or even the Pashtuns better than the Pakistanis. How could they have presumed that the Taliban will do what they want? See, the Afghan is first a nationalist and last a nationalist. And the Taliban, in opposition, were a different kettle of fish. In power, are a different kettle of fish.
And this is when you have people like Sirajid, the Haqqani brothers, and everyone else who were who grew up in the
system of Pakistan.
Yeah. And so these are the people who are now literally on the other side of the fence as far as the relationship is concerned. And then Pakistan is not able to bring anything positive to the table to address genuine Afghan concerns, whether it is humanitarian assistance, economic assistance, even transit. The shutting down of the two main border crossings, Torkham and Nangarhar and so on, and down to Kandahar. So strange things have been happening on the border.
And the main thing that Pakistan told them, we'll get you international recognition.
Yes.
And Taliban said, fine, that is the biggest thing they want is recognition. Unfreeze their accounts, and get on. Pakistan has failed miserably. Nobody wants to listen to Pakistan. Because, its international salience has come down tremendously after the US left Afghanistan. Exactly. So, and the TTP started increasing its attacks. Initial TTP goal was to implement Sharia. Now it has changed. They have adopted a much more nationalist line. Pashtuns, we want to govern this area. They have appointed shadow governors and shadow provinces in 12 areas of Pakistan, 7 in KPK, 2 in Balochistan, 1 in Gilgit-Baltistan, and 2 even in Punjab.
This is incredible.
They have a fantastic media strategy. And the army, not being able to handle this, has sought to divert attention by kicking out 1.7 million undocumented Afghans.
Yeah, I wanted to,
So we can move to that.
Yeah, let's move to that, yeah.
So this is just a knee-jerk reaction. Okay, these are the people who are helping the TTP. They are involved in crime. They are involved in all kinds of problems in Pakistan. So let's throw them out. So this is the first phase. There are, after this, about 1.4, more than 2 million who are documented, who have either Afghan citizenship cards or proof of residence cards. I think the Pakistani plan is to throw all of them out as a way to pressurize the Taliban that if you continue to support the TTP, this is what we're going to do. So in an article I wrote recently, I mentioned that is this going to improve Pakistan's security? I said it will not, because the TTP is based, some of them have camps, maybe in Afghanistan, but they're locals. Yeah. So you're not touching them. So they're going to go. So exactly what happened in DI Khan.
Yeah.
And the people who are being left out in a very miserable condition, if you read their stories.
So the atrocities being faced by these refugees that are getting expelled are apparently really, really serious.
Yeah. You see, first of all, winter in Afghanistan now. You push them out at a time when winter is there. Afghanistan already has a lot of malnutrition and food scarcity. About 15 million people are facing food scarcity. You're putting a 1.7 million in that situation. You're sending girls and women back to a place where there's no girls' education. Women can't work.
So actually, you're making problems much worse for Afghanistan, and you're taking a very narrow, selfish approach.
But in the long term, a Pashtun doesn't forget. One of the key elements of the Pashtun Valley, or the way of the Pashtun, is revenge. A blow for a pinch. So they are going to become fresh recruits for the TTP. And this is going to come back and hurt Pakistan much more in the long term. It's a very, very short-sighted thing.
And also, it flies against the face of anything which Pakistan might talk about in terms of support for the Palestinian refugees, for example.
They're talking about demonstrations for the Palestinians. You are kicking out in your backyard 1.7 million. This is going to be the largest forced migration in the world in recent times. Largest.
And how can you also then be a spokesman for the Rohingyas?
Rohingyas, Palestinians, anywhere.
Yeah, anywhere.
Anywhere. So, because what you're doing is absolute. You see, they say we're not a member of the Refugee Council,
The
Convention
UNHCR, correct.
or the protocol. But international humanitarian law, basic principle for refugees is non-refoulement.
Correct.
That is, you don't send back people where their lives are going to be in threat, or they will have human rights violation.
No, you may, but the worst thing is to send them under duress, that you're literally forcing them out. That has never happened in recent history, except under very, very dire dictatorial and ruthless systems and regimes. You don't normally do
And
that.
in many cases, even though people are showing their cards,
Yes.
as I mentioned, proof of residence or citizenship cards, the police confiscates those cards and say, you are undocumented, now get out. Pakistani Pashtuns are facing problems because all of them now have to carry documentation. So this is increasing the alienation among the Pashtuns.
So when we started talking about the provinces and the kind of tendencies within Pakistan to separate or to go their own way, this will exacerbate all that.
Absolutely, especially in the Pashtun. You see,
I mean, it won't unite the country.
No.
It'll do the opposite.
it will do the opposite because the Pashtuns are a critical mass in Pakistan. The 31 million in an area, the Baloch have 44% of Pakistan's territory, but just about 4 or 5% of the population.
Correct.
They're not a critical mass.
Correct.
The Pashtuns, like the Bengalis in East Pakistan, are a critical mass. And you are actually poking your finger into the Pashtuns' eyes.
That's a really dangerous game.
Yeah. So Pakistani Pashtuns have developed differently than, let's say, the Afghan Pashtun. But at the end of the day, the ethnicity is common, language is common, their customs and beliefs are the same. And they're also going to say, what is happening?
Correct. And you might actually have a situation where the Afghan Taliban and the ruling dispensation there would much rather deal with India than with Pakistan. I mean, there is a pull factor inviting India back into Afghanistan, saying, you come back and do whatever you were doing before in terms of projects, in terms of wheat.
They already have. They want you to come back.
They want you to come back.
Because they know in the region, India is the only heavy lifter.
So this whole project to build this fence between India, Pakistan and Afghanistan, 2,600 kilometers or whatever the figure is, again, it's ironical that the Pakistanis at some stage were fishing in troubled waters when we were building the fence with Bangladesh. And they
Or the LOC.
Or the
LOC, they were, even now, on the working boundary, they have problems. They keep, and then they tell us, but you have a fence, so how come infiltration is taking place? Same thing the Taliban are telling them today. You have a fence. Where is the TTP going across the fence? Chickens have really come home to roost.
Yeah, so I think on multiple fronts, there is a serious crisis that is brewing. I want to lastly talk to you about the India dimension of the relationship with Pakistan, and how do you see 2024 evolving? Do you see any changes in the India-Pakistan dynamic? I mean, it's all speculative, but maybe we just end with some few thoughts by you.
You see, right now in Pakistan, there's a caretaker government. It's not going to take any major policy decisions. India is also heading gradually towards elections in the middle of next year. So I think till then, I don't see any kind of forward movement in Indo-Pak relations. As it is, forward movement in Indo-Pak relations is a very sort of subjective term.
Highly qualified.
Yeah. So maybe after elections in both countries, fresh guard, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah. But the inhibiting factor is that in 2019 August, Imran Khan laid down the policy in stone for Pakistan that till such time as India reverses those changes, no talk, no trade, he withdrew high commissioners and so on and so on. Now, that is written in stone. Shehbaz Sharif, when he was the coalition government, couldn't change it. Caretaker government can't. Any new government that comes will have this mountain to climb.
Yeah.
And especially after the Supreme Court's judgment on the Article 370.
Correct.
It has made it even more problematic for Pakistan. So I think Pakistan right now, at least the permanent establishment, the MOFA, are struggling to respond. Of course, the initial reaction is,
yes,
you can't do this because your domestic legal system has no impact on the international.
Even the Chinese have chipped in with some statement.
Yeah, but when they think about it much more rationally, because Nawaz Sharif's statement came out also 2 days ago, that if I'm back in power, I'll have better relations with India. So I think...
I somehow, by the way, tend to believe that. But anyway, I think we are maybe running out of time. The lesson from this discussion is that we need more discussion among ourselves to complete a very, very exciting and aspect of this discussion, which is the India-Pakistan and, of course, Pakistan's other external policies within the region and with the major powers. But since we have run out of time, I just want to thank you, Tilak, for a fantastic discussion. Very, very interesting. We need to have another sitting and continue our discussion. But till then, thank you so much. And I hope that the viewers and listeners, all of you, have enjoyed this discussion with Mr. Tilak Devasher, who is a great authority and a writer on Pakistan. And we will definitely revisit this issue next year and probably before that, and bring to you more insights into Pakistan, Afghanistan, its relationship with India, and what this means for regional stability. Thank you so much for watching. Until we meet again, goodbye.
Thank you so much, Pankaj, for calling me. And I really enjoyed this discussion because, it was a conversation, and because of your own background and knowledge. So I didn't feel this was any kind of a formal, it's just a conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so very much for calling me.
Thank you.
And I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tilak. This was delightful. Thanks a lot. Thank you.